many different ways to get to the campus of Wichita State University. As Studio B's Tony Dusing reports, the choice is up to you.
Every morning, the WSU parking become a battleground for a limited number of spaces, but you can help ease that problem somewhat by carpooling. If you want to find out more about carpooling, just come here to Informed Sources at the Campus Activity Center. Student manager Roy Reitner says almost anyone can get involved with carpooling.
It's very simple to get into the carpool program. Just come up to the office, pick up one of our forms, fill it out, and turn it in.
Another way many students find their way to Wichita State is by riding the city bus. And the bus is economical, only 85 cents. Joe Varnicki is the general manager of the Wichita Metropolitan Transit Authority. Varnicki says the East 17th bus services WSU.
It operates along Hydraulic up to East 17th and right to WSU campus. It operates every half hour on weekdays from 6 o'clock in the morning till approximately 6 p.m. at night.
Varnicki says carpooling is also available through the Wichita MTA.
During your enrollment process down at WSU and several of the other colleges and also public schools, the ACT program was out there to introduce to the student body carpooling. Anybody that would be interested would contact the ACT office. We would send them out the necessary information and try to match those people up so that they could carpool.
Besides the automobile and the bus, there are the cycles. If the weather is great, walking not only is good for you, but it gives you time to think. Whether you ride in a bus or drive a car or carpool or even cycle or even walk, there are many different ways to get to Wichita State. For Studio B, I'm Tony Dusing.
Wichita State is offering more than just information from their booth at the...
This week, the Wichita State's University Organ Series began.
Tonight, Tony Dusing looks at the Marcusson organ.
It's called the Great Marcusson Organ, and it's housed in Wiedemann Hall. It's called the Great Marcusson Organ, but part of what makes it great is its location, Wiedemann Hall. The building was built to accommodate the organ. In 1986, the building was finished, and the organ was installed. It's called a Marcusson organ because it's built by Marcusson and Son organ builders of Denmark, a company with more than a century of organ building experience. With 4,623 pipes, it took 7 weeks to install the organ and 10 weeks of tuning. The Great Marcusson organ is 25 feet wide, 7 feet deep, and 34 feet high. Technical manager Mike Burgraff isn't shy about expressing his love for the organ.
I really think it's a treasure, a national monument. It's a one of a kind. There are no others like it anywhere.
The hall was constructed specially for the Marcusson organ. The auditorium walls are 26 inches thick with sound-diffused paneling on the ceiling and walls to create the perfect audio chamber.
It's incredible to sit in here and listen to it and to realize you can't hear this anywhere else. That this is the only one of these that there are.
Through Wiedemann Hall and the Great Marcusson organ, a dream has become reality. And this dream has and will be enjoyed by a countless number of musicians, music lovers, and dreamers. For Studio B, I'm Tony Dusing.
The next recital will feature David Mulberry and will be Tuesday, November 9th at 7:30 p.m.
Enrollment at WSU continues to drop.
With some insight and solutions to the problem, here's Studio B's Tony Dusing.
WSU's enrollment fell 1.5% or 659 fewer students from last semester. So the question is, why does Wichita State keep losing students?
We know that every survey that we take or surveys that are done nationally, that cost of an education is the #1 priority.
WSU student Melissa Beckhoff thinks students miss out on financial aid opportunities.
Well, I think the financial aid office is maybe not getting the word out as much of what is available as far as financial aid. I know there's a lot of people who are going to school out here who don't get any financial aid at all because they don't know what's available. You know.
Besides the cost of tuition, students consider the cost of time.
If you look at other institutions that are having increases in their enrollment, you will find that what they are doing is they are consolidating programs. They're making programs which are 15-week or 30-week completion programs, giving lots of credit for experiential things. What they're doing is they're dealing with the cost as a time issue.
The other area of concern is the perception of safety on the campus, even though Wichita State is second on a list of safest region institutions in Kansas, according to the FBI.
I think that people don't feel as safe here at WSU than they might feel at home or out on the farm or wherever.
On-campus night courses dropped 4.5% since last year. How safe is it on the campus of Wichita State?
It's probably one of the safest places in the city, and certainly one of the safest places in the state or the Midwest.
Even among the nation's urban universities, WSU ranked second for safety. Wichita State continues to improve the safety on campus by adding more lights, hiring 3 new police officers, and purchasing more two-way radios to improve communication.
Well, some of the solutions that I've already seen is the cadets walking around, and those emergency poles that they've put in. There's one over by the science building that I noticed is a recent addition to WSU.
Professor John Dreifert says there are things Wichita State can do and things Wichita State shouldn't have to do.
There are things that we can do to make the campus easier to get around. There are things we can do to make registration more possible. But the things we are not going to do, and that is to compromise the quality of our education.
As we went around the campus of Wichita State, we found students wondering why the tuition is higher at Wichita State than at a community college.
Admittedly, tuition at a Regents institution is higher than it is at community college. Ask yourself, what are you getting for your dollars?
For Studio B, I'm Tony Dusing.
The inauguration of Wichita... Thanks, Chris.
WSU basketball star John Smith is no longer a shocker.
With the story, here's Studio B's Tony Dusing.
The turbulent career of John Smith came to a close at Thursday's press conference.
Scott Thompson and I concluded that John could not now nor at any point in the future participate in basketball at Wichita State University.
This was the second time domestic violence charges have been brought against Smith since he arrived here at Wichita State in 1991.
Smith was a key player for Wichita State's basketball program, averaging 10.5 points per game. Coach Scott Thompson said losing Smith will have an effect on the basketball program.
There's no doubt about that it's a big hit to our basketball team this year, and we'll see what happens once practice starts to see how our team recovers from this, both mentally and physically.
WSU students had mixed feelings on the decision.
What I think that is important is that he understand what the consequences are for his actions. Of course, this isn't the first time this has happened. I have a lot of respect for him. He's probably one of the best players we've had in quite a while. However, I think that the athletic department made a very good, wise decision.
Just throwing him, back out to the wolves, so to speak, is not helping him as a student. We use his athletic ability, but when he's embarrassing the campus in his actions, we don't take the time to stop and help him with those problems.
Scott Thompson says he has been through a lot, but the team will make it.
Personally, shoot, I've been through ups and downs so much that and I'm talking over the years, that you take what comes and you try to make the best of what the situation is, and that's what we're going to do this year.
For Studio B, I'm Tony Dusing.
It may soon be easier for students. A WSU group finds itself without recognition.
With the story, here's Studio B's Tony Dusing.
So I just wanted to let you know who we are and what we're about, and I hope that you'll take that into consideration.
All they wanted was to be recognized. On Wednesday, the Student Government Association decided not to recognize a WSU gay and lesbian group. The group, which calls itself 10%, spoke out.
I think that by the SJ recognition of the 10% group would be beneficial to WSU to increase the awareness of the diversity composition of its campus.
James Radigan, Vice President of Student Affairs, attended the SGA meeting. Radigan felt SGA members were not being fair to the group.
So those people exist on our campus, they're among us, they're a part of us. Now, you don't have to approve of their lifestyle. We have some strict criteria by why we disapprove groups, and they don't fit any of these criteria.
One SGA senator who asked not to be identified told Studio B that the reasoning for not recognizing 10% was because Kansas law outlaws the sexual actions of gays and lesbians. For Studio B, I'm Tony Dusing.
Members of 10% say they will now appeal the SGA's decision before the WSU Supreme Court.
Welcome back to Studio B. I'm Tony Dusing with sports. The awards continue to roll in for former Wichita State All-American Darren Dreifert. Dreifert, who signed a $1.3 million contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers in September, received the Golden Spikes Award on Wednesday. The award is given annually to the nation's outstanding amateur baseball player by the United States Baseball Federation. Dreifert was one of 9 finalists for the award and the first player in WSU history to receive it. Last weekend, the Shockers men's tennis team hosted the 1993 Rolex Regional Championship. Wichita State freshman Phil Cooper made it to the singles semifinals before falling to Reed Slattery of Kansas University. 8th-seeded Slattery went on to claim the top singles spot at the tournament. Cooper also teamed with Richard Lamoth in doubles and advanced to the quarterfinals before losing to Andy Davis and Anthony Kodarak of Nebraska. Well, as we told you earlier, tonight is opening night for Shocker basketball. With only 9 scholarship players suiting up for tonight's first practice, Coach Scott Thompson is inviting walk-ons to try out for the squad. If you want to take your best shot at making the Shocker squad, the curtain call comes early. Tryouts begin 7:30 Saturday morning at Henry Levitt Arena. Now, a little something for the hoops fans out there. At 10:45 tonight, the doors open at Levitt Arena with Midnight Madness beginning. There will be contests and prizes for those who attend, men's and women's scrimmages, and don't forget the slam dunk competition. So come out and support the Shockers as they fast break into the new season. For a preview of this year's Shockers, Studio B's Chris Wimmer joins us live from the Roundhouse with Shocker basketball coach Scott Thompson. Go. Welcome back to Studio B. I'm Tony Dusing with sports. Despite the slow start by the Wichita State volleyball team, one bright spot has been senior hitter Becky Sutter. She was named Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Week. Sutter averaged 3.9 kills and 2.8 digs while hitting .304 last week. She also had a season-high .421 hitting percentage and 21 kills against Kansas State. Even though Sutter hasn't dominated on the court, Coach Phil Shoemaker says she is putting in a lot more time and has paid off. Fitness Week has come to WSU. Wichita State was one of 300 schools accepted nationwide to participate in Fitness Week. All week, the Heskett Center held activities to encourage physical fitness and fun.
The goal is to remember that your physical fitness is important, no matter how busy your schedule can be, and to find different things that you like.
The participants only competing against themselves. Prizes will be awarded at the end of the week, with the challengers' names being pulled from a hat. A blood drive was also held in conjunction with Fitness Week. Students were encouraged to give a pint of blood to help someone in need. Fitness Weeks will conclude this Saturday. After only one tournament, it looks as if the Shockers men's and women's bowling teams will continue their dominance. Last weekend, both the men and women earned first-place honors at the Brunswick Collegiate Match Open in Denver. The men are returning 6 bowlers from last year's national championship team, while the women's returned 8 members from last year's national qualifying team. So it looks as though only one thing will satisfy the Shocks.
We're trying to do something that no intercollegiate men's team has ever done before, which is win 2 national titles back-to-back. Since the inception of the Nationals in 1975, there's been a lot of different winners, but no one has ever won the thing 2 times in a row.
The men and women open up their Great Plains Intercollegiate Conference schedule Saturday at North Rock Lanes. Well, as you may know by now, Studio B has been highlighting a different sports club each week. Today, Studio B's Brett Kay gives a look inside a club that gets pleasure out of risking their lives.
Studio B's weekly feature, Campus Faces, shows you people from all around the Wichita State campus.
Tonight, Studio B reporter Tony Dusing has the story of one WSU student and how she is pursuing what she loves, helping others.
A full-time student at Wichita State studying for her PhD in communicative disorders and sciences. That in itself is hard work.
I still have a long way to go. I have to finish the residency year this semester, take more classes. We have to take qualifying exams, so you write almost essays about your particular area of interest.
It wasn't until Julie attended the University of Tulsa while working on her bachelor's degree that she became interested in the medical field.
They had a center for communicative disorders and sciences that I saw patients and, just people going in and out of, and I could tll that the students were getting hands-on work with people in the community that were really something was happening there.
But not only is Julie working hard on her PhD, she already has a successful full-time career as a speech therapist. Julie is employed as a speech and language pathologist at St. Joseph Medical Center. There, she diagnoses and treats patients with communicative disorders. This is the West Campus of the St. Joseph Medical Center, where patients from St. Joseph come to see speech therapists like Julie. The day we shot this story, Julie was helping Helen, a St. Joseph patient, with her speech.
Anything that has to do with world news is going to have some harder words.
Hard words in there to decipher.
Yeah, you are right about that.
Yeah.
Julie's work with patients not only involves helping them with their speech problems, but also giving them the right therapy to get patients back into a normal society.
Any of the things we do, you just feel so good about helping people and making their lives a little bit better. And they're always so grateful for anything that is a help to them.
Julie feels that when she does get her PhD, she will be able to do more for others. Julie says Wichita State has a great hands-on program.
From what I've seen, and talked with the students that, maybe got their undergraduate degree from KU but chose WSU to come to, is because a large part is because of the faculty and the fact that they get a lot more hands-on work than at other universities.
For Studio B, I'm Tony Dusing.
Thank you for joining us today.
Be sure to join us next week at the same time for another edition of Studio B.
We hope you have a great weekend. Last week, the Student Government Association voted not to recognize a WSU gay, lesbian, and bisexual organization.
With a follow-up to the story, here's Studio B's Tony Dusing.
All those opposed, please raise your right hand.
It was a week and a half ago at a Student Government Association meeting where SGA senators voted 5-9 not to recognize a WSU gay, lesbian, and bisexual organization which calls itself 10%. At this week's SGA meeting, over 80 members and friends of 10% attended in support of the group. Some spoke out.
We're students, we're teachers, we're staff members, we're alumni, we're parents, we're community people. And we're all here to tell you that when you hurt one minority, you hurt all of the minorities.
And I am also a gay man. I am trying to remain calm when I see what the Senate is doing or is trying to do by stating that people like me do not exist.
Most of you don't know what it's like to be gay, lesbian, or bisexual on this campus. I am risking myself, as well as these people standing behind me, in coming here and supporting us.
Nothing was expected to come out of this week's meeting. In fact, after members and supporters of 10% made their points, many left during a 15-minute recess. Members of 10% were planning to take this issue to the WSU Supreme Court on November 11th. But those who stayed came to find that going to the WSU Supreme Court may not be necessary. James Radigan, Vice President for Student Affairs, asked the SGA to reconsider their vote.
My reason for asking us to reconsider is based on the premise that last week we were uncertain about the status of our votes, rather than our opposition to 10%. And so I want us to reconsider on that basis.
So the senators voted to reconsider, and then the senators debated.
So I think the question here is legality. It's not morality, it's legality. And I want to know, I want to hear some discussion as far as the research that senators have done regarding the Kansas statutes.
They may not actively participate in criminal sodomy in their meetings, but their mere existence and the connotations of the group do promote the lifestyle.
I just can't support a group that supports that, which is against Kansas statute. All I'm going to say.
Finally, after 3 hours into the SGA meeting, a vote to recognize 10% was made. And by an 11-6 vote, the SGA decided to recognize 10%. For Studio B, I'm Tony Dusing.
Tuition costs at Wichita State for first.
5. Tune in for exciting Wichita State women's volleyball action Saturday evening when the Lady Shockers do battle against the Salukis from Southern Illinois. WSU 13 brings you all the action live from Levitt Arena starting at 7 p.m. After winning the Shocker Classic last weekend, the Lady Shocks return to the Missouri Valley Conference action as they bid farewell to 4 talented Shocker seniors playing in their last home game. Join Garen Emig and Kim Henry for all the excitement of Wichita State women's volleyball. Live Saturday evening at 7, only on WSU 13.
The college price war heats up, and Wichita State tries to compete.
Making dollars and cents of the situation, here's Studio B's Tony Dusing.
It's no secret. The cost of tuition at Wichita State is much higher than at a community college. But Wichita State officials are trying to do something about that. A proposal reducing the costs of 100 and 200 level intro courses has been introduced.
We were going to cut tuition at WSU down somewhere in the around $30, $35 for 100 and 200 level courses.
Currently, tuition fees at Wichita State are the same as KU's and K-State's and not too far off from Fort Hays. But add in the Hutchinson JUCO or Butler County Community College, and the tuition costs drop at least 50%. This proposal was brought forward so that Wichita State could better compete with community colleges like Butler County. Jim Clark says there are students going to Butler County because it is cheaper.
We're definitely losing students to the community college, and student surveys say that at least part of the reason for that is because our tuition is considerably higher than their tuition is.
In fact, we found students attending Butler County that, when asked, said they would look to WSU if tuition were lower.
Yeah, I live like about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from there, so it'd be a lot closer.
Because I live in Wichita, it's a shorter drive.
The next step for the proposal is to the Kansas State Board of Regents to consider, and no one knows what the regents will decide.
But the regents themselves may decide that this is a good way for WSU to serve its constituents, serve its community, and help us compete in what has become a price war.
For Studio B, I'm Tony Dusing.
If the Board of Regents were to lower WSU's tuition for first and second year courses to around $32, only the community colleges would have a lower tuition.
The Shockers may soon toss the pigskin again.
With the story, here's Studio B's Tony Dusing.
Football at Wichita State may become a reality. That, according to Athletic Director Bill Belknap, who visited the Faculty Senate on Monday. Belknap gave a report to the Senate about the athletic department. During the report, Belknap said the athletic department is looking into the options pertaining to bringing football back to Wichita State. Belknap said that there are 3 options to look at. The first option is WSU playing in a 1A football program. Cost per year can run anywhere from $4 to $5 million and up. The second option is WSU playing in a 1AA football program where costs per year are lower, between $1.5 million to $4 million. The third option is having WSU compete in the Division III program. Now, even though recruiting and coaching would be very limited, costs for a Division III football program would run $500,000 per year. Belknap says in the past, Wichita State has looked at the higher cost options. Belknap says he is ruling out the first two options and is looking into the third option of Division III play. Belknap says that in any event, the stadium, which is now an eyesore, has to be fixed up. Belknap says a final decision on WSU football is needed so the athletic department can move ahead. For Studio B, I'm Tony Ducey.
Next.
Whether or not we decide to start up the football program, let's at least fix up the stadium.
That's what WSU Athletic Director Bill Belknap said at the Student Government Association meeting on Wednesday night.
With the latest idea for Cessna Stadium, here's Studio B's Tony Ducey.
Wichita State's athletic director says something has to be done about Cessna Stadium.
I would like us to have a stadium of some sort. I would like that to be an attractive facility. I'd like it to have suitable seating in it. I'd like it to be safe.
Cessna Stadium is not only used by Wichita State, but other organizations like the Kansas State High School Track and Field Championships and the Missouri Valley Track and Field Championships.
This Saturday, we're having 3 high school playoff games. That's important to give those students and their families some exposure to this institution. But what kind of exposure we give them? We're bringing them in and letting them come into a facility that maybe we'd be better off, frankly, if they didn't use.
The cost to restore Cessna Stadium would run anywhere from $10 to $20 million. Belknap's idea is to return Cessna Stadium back to the original Veterans Field, which in turn would cost WSU much less.
We could go back to that original Veterans Stadium configuration and fix it up and have a delightful little stadium that would seat about 12,000 people, would serve probably all of our needs, including a low-cost football if that occurred in our future.
Belknap says that he hopes to have a better idea within the next few weeks on what to do with Cessna Stadium. For Studio B, I'm Tony Ducey.
A WSU search committee has recommended.
Today you will meet someone that has an effect on every student attending Wichita State.
With this week's Campus Faces, here's Studio B's Tony Ducey.
He is the type of college student that Wichita State benefits greatly from. Meet Neil Smith, the senator.
Not being on student government, actually, you look and everybody's really critical of what goes on, but once you see the inner workings, it's a lot easier to criticize without being involved, or at least going to meetings and finding out what's going on.
Neil is also the public relations director for the Student Government Association. Senators say Neil does a great job.
I think he does an excellent job in everything he does. As a senator, he's an excellent senator. He has a lot of good ideas. He needs to be a little bit more in favor of football, but I think we can change him on that.
And if being a senator was not enough, meet Neil Smith, the photo editor and business manager of the Parnassus, Wichita State's yearbook.
The biggest challenge with the Parnassus this year has been setting it up, because we're operating, completely from scratch. There was a yearbook here in the past, but it's been so long ago. There was no equipment left on campus. We had to purchase all new computers. We had to purchase everything down to Scotch tape.
It was interesting to see Neil at work helping put together the return of the Parnassus, but what was really interesting was finding out how talented Neil is as a photographer. Neil is a product of the Navy School of Photography, one of the best in the country.
It was a lot of work. I mean, the first year was constantly bookwork, studying, passing exams, and you have to qualify for this position. It's not like you go in and enlist and you're a photographer automatically. You go through the school. If at any point in the school you don't make it, you're sent out chip and paint, or, that type of thing, the horror stories you hear from the military.
Neil was in the military for 5 years, years that Neil says he greatly enjoyed.
The adrenaline level that you get while you're out doing aerial photography and action photography, the type of stuff I was involved with, you can't be matched in a civilian life.
What are Neil's plans for the future?
Eventually hope to be a sports business major, and eventually I would like to be working here at WSU for the athletic department. Now that's a couple years or 3 years down the road, but I see that as maybe something potential in the future.
We do wish the best for Neil. For Studio B, I'm Tony Ducey.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
This is the last edition of Studio B this semester. So from all of us here at Studio B, thanks for watching. And don't forget to tune in again next semester.
Happy holidays.
Costs associated with the previous program were underwritten by the Student Government Association.
The university police says Anya Zitkoff parked in a no parking zone and in turn received a parking violation. Zitkoff says the no parking zone was not clearly marked, so she took her ticket to the University Appeals Court.
And basically, when it got time to go to traffic court, I went in there, and the officer that had written up the ticket was not there. He wasn't present.
Zitkoff feels the Sixth Amendment of her constitutional rights were violated. The Sixth Amendment states that in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the rights to a speedy and public trial to be confronted with the witnesses against him.
I was really upset. I was mad because I couldn't believe the way it seems like I went in there to tell him my side of the story, and without even having an officer present there to tell his side, they automatically took the opposite side and the viewpoint that I was like guilty and the ticket should be upheld.
Sergeant John Hedrick of the University Police says University Police do appear in appeals court on moving violations, but do not on non-moving violations. Hedrick says University Police have checked with the Attorney General's office, which ruled that officers did not have to be present in court on non-moving violations.
We went for the Attorney General's. They had a ruling from them. They said we did not have to do that either.
Sergeant Hedrick says the ticket is evidence of her parking violation. In our investigation, Studio B has found a Kansas statute that states using a ticket as evidence in court is inadmissible evidence. The statute states that evidence of a statement which is made other than by a witness while testifying at the hearing offered to prove the truth of the matter stated is hearsay evidence and inadmissible. For Studio B, I'm Tony Dusing.